Before people pay for an Antidetect browser, they usually try to get the same result for free, either with plain Chrome profiles or with virtual machines. Both feel like they should work, and both fall short in specific ways that are worth understanding before you either waste time on them or dismiss them too fast. Today I want to compare Antidetect browsers against Chrome profiles and against virtual machines honestly, so you know exactly what each approach separates, what it does not, and where your money and effort actually belong. Quick note on framing: I run real proxy and cloud phone farms, and I have used all three of these approaches at different points. I'm going to keep this concrete and honest, no undetectable promises, and the goal is to match the approach to the job rather than crown one winner, because they genuinely fit different situations. Wait, B1C, they need separating. Start with the goal, because it decides everything. To keep accounts apart, you need to separate more than just logins. You need separate cookies and sessions, separate fingerprints, the canvas, web gear, fonts, and hardware signals, and separate network identities, the IP and its story. An approach that separates only some of those leaves the accounts linkable on the rest. So the honest way to judge Chrome profiles, virtual machines, and Antidetect browsers is to ask, of those three things, cookies, fingerprint, and network, which does each one actually keep apart? Chrome profiles, what they separate. Chrome profiles are the free options everyone tries first, and they do separate one thing well: cookies and logins. Each Chrome profile has its own cookie jar, so you can be logged into different accounts in each without them sharing sessions. For keeping logins from colliding, they are genuinely fine, and for casual separations of unrelated personal accounts, they may be all you need. The trouble is that cookies are only one of the three things that need separating, and Chrome profiles stop there. Chrome profiles, what they do not. Here is the fatal gap. Every Chrome profile on the same machine shares the same fingerprint. The canvas, the web render, the fonts, the hardware signals are identical across all of them, because it is the same browser on the same computer. They also share the same IP unless you add proxies yourself. So from a detection standpoint, 10 Chrome profiles can look like 10 logins from one identical device on one connection, which is exactly the pattern that links accounts. Chrome profiles separate the cookie jar and nothing that actually matters for looking like different people. Virtual machines, what they separate. Virtual machines go further. Each VM is a whole separate operating system environment, so it can carry its own browser, its own cookies, and a somewhat different fingerprint from the host and from other VMs. That is real separations, more than Chrome profiles offer. And for a small number of strongly separated identities, a VM approach can genuinely work. It also isolates the environments from each other cleanly, which has security benefits. For a few high-value identities you want kept firmly apart, virtual machines are a legitimate approach, not a joke. Virtual machines, what they cost. But virtual machines are heavy. Each one consumes real memory, disk, and processing power. So running many at once bogs down or is impossible on ordinary hardware. They are slow to create and manage, and scaling to dozens or hundreds of identities is impractical for most people. The fingerprint separation is real but coarse. You get whatever the VM happens to present without fine control over each signal, and they still share one IP unless you proxy each VM separately. So VMS separate more than Chrome profiles, but at a cost in resources and scale that stops them well short of a real operations. Antidetect browsers, what they separate. Antidetect browsers were built specifically to solve the fingerprint problem that the other two miss. Each profile gets its own managed fingerprint, its own cookies, and its own assigned proxy, all controlled at a fine grain and all in one lightweight tool. You can adjust individual signals, keep each profile internally consistent, and run many of them side by side without a separate operating system per identity. This is the point of the whole category. It separates all three things that matter: cookies, fingerprint, and network, in a way Chrome profiles cannot, and virtual machines cannot do efficiently. Antidetect browsers, the trade-offs, they are not free and not magic, so be honest about the trade-offs. You pay a subscription, and the good ones are not cheap, especially at scale. They control the browser fingerprint, but not the proxy, which you still bring and pay for separately. and they carry the same honest sealing everything in this space does. They reduce fingerprint linkability. They do not make accounts unbannable. So an Antidetect browser buys you fine-grained, scalable separation of the signals that matter in exchange for money and the ongoing proxy work, not the guarantee of anything. The resource comparison, put the three side by side on weight. Chrome profiles are the lightest. They are just folders in one browser, so you can have many with almost no cost, but they separate almost nothing. Virtual machines are the heaviest, full operating system each, so you can only run a few before hardware gives out. Antidetect browsers sit in the sweet spot. One lightweight application running many isolated profiles. Scaling to numbers a VM approach never could on the same machines, if scale matters at all. That weight difference alone rules Chrome profiles in for casual use and virtual machines out for volume. The network layer across all three. One thing is identical across all three. None of them gives you a network identity. Chrome profiles, virtual machines, and Antidetect browsers all share your one real IP, unless you add proxies. So the network half of the separation is your job no matter which you pick. People sometimes imagine a VM or an Antidetect browser hides their IP on its own. It does not. You attach proxies in every case, and the quality and matching of those proxies matters as much as the tool. This is the great equalizer. The proxy work does not go away with any of these approaches. Where Chrome profiles fit, be fair to each. Chrome profiles fit casual separation of a handful of unrelated personal accounts where nobody is running serious detection against you, and where you just want your logins not to collide. They cost nothing and take no setup. For that narrow job they are fine, and paying for an Antidetect browser to keep two personal accounts apart is overkill. Know the limit though. The moment real fingerprint separation matters, Chrome profiles are not the tool, and stretching them past casual use is how people get linked. Where virtual machines fit a small number of high-value identities that you want strongly and cleanly isolated, where you are willing to spend the resources for that isolation and you do not need to scale to many. Security-minded separation of a few important environments is a legitimate VM use, but the resource cost and the coarse fingerprint control mean that once you need more than a handful or need fine control over signals, the VM approach stops making sense and the purpose-built tool takes over. Where Antidetect browsers fit exactly the gap the other two leave. Many identities that each need fine-grained, consistent fingerprint separation run efficiently on ordinary hardware with per-profile proxies. That is the operator and agency use case, and it is why the category exists. If you are running more than a handful of accounts that need to look like genuinely different devices, neither Chrome profiles nor virtual machines get you there, and the Antidetect browser is the tool built for the job. It is not that it is always best, it is that it is best for that specific common need. The honest decision, so decide by the job, not the price tag. Separating two personal logins, Chrome profiles, free and fine. A few strongly isolated high-value environments, virtual machines, if you can spend the resources. Many accounts needing consistent, scalable fingerprint separation, an Antidetect browser, because nothing else does that job efficiently. And in every case, the proxies are on you, and they matter as much as the tool. Pick the approach that matches your actual scale and separation needs, and do not overpay for a heavier answer than your job requires. The setup and maintenance effort. Effort is a cost people forget to count. Chrome profiles take almost no setup. You just create them, which is part of their appeal for casual use. Virtual machines take real effort, building each environment, keeping each updated, managing the resources, which adds up fast across several. Antidetect browsers sit in between. More setup than a Chrome profile per account because you configure fingerprints and proxies, but far less than standing up a whole operating system each time. And the management scales because it is one tool. Weigh the ongoing effort, not just the price, because a cheaper approach that eats your time is not actually cheaper. Fingerprint control granularity. The three differ sharply in how finely you can control the fingerprint. Chrome profiles give you none. They all share one. Virtual machines give you whatever the VM happens to present, which is real separation but coarse. You take what the environment produces without adjusting individual signals. Antidetect browsers give you fine-grained control. letting you set and check each surface and keep each profile internally consistent. That granularity is the whole reason the category exists, because looking like a genuinely different, consistent device requires controlling the specific signals, not just having a different environment by luck. The hybrid some people use for completeness. Some operators combine approaches, running an Antidetect browser inside a virtual machine or across several machines for extra isolation on especially high-value identities. That layering adds separation, but also stacks the costs and effort of both. So it only makes sense for a small number of identities where the stakes justify it. Most people do not need it, and reaching for it by default is over-engineering. But knowing the approaches can combine helps you see they are not strictly either-or. They are tools that occasionally complement each other at the high end. The honest cost picture, put the money together across all of it. Chrome profiles are free, but separate almost nothing. Virtual machines are free in software, but expensive in hardware and time, and kept out at low numbers. Antidetect browsers cost a subscription plus proxies, and that proxy cost often exceeds the browser cost at scale. So the real comparison is not free versus paid. It is what separation you get for the total cost of each path, including hardware and time. Seen that way, the Antidetect browser is usually the cheapest route to real, scalable separation, even though it has the most obvious price tag attached. So the honest comparison is that Chrome profiles separate cookies and nothing else. Virtual machines separate more, but cost too much to scale, and Antidetect browsers separate all three signals that matter efficiently for a price. Match the tool to your real scale, and remember the network half is always your job. Which Antidetect browsers actually deliver that separation cleanly under testing is written up, tested hands-on with proxies attached, and no undetectable promises anywhere at antidetectreview.org. If this clarified where your effort belongs, subscribe, because next up I am getting into TLS and HTTP fingerprinting, the signals a browser cannot fake on its own. See you in the next